Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. It is me once again, screaming into the void of the internet. You know, I mentioned something in my recent video, and it got me thinking. It got me thinking about a lot of stuff in the black pill space and just how much of an injustice it is. Because you know something, guys, a lot of you, in spite of how angry and resentful, and justified you are in that, it's sad what happened. Because a lot of you guys genuinely usually have hearts of gold. And all of this bullcrap where they try and call you subhuman and sub 5 and all this crap, in spite of sometimes looking a certain way and even having some kind of disability, it's usually those kinds of guys that go out of their way to help people. And I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to talk about injustice in the world and what I do to try and, I'm not going to say stay positive, okay? Because I tell you guys that I have to look at the whole picture. But, it's just how I kind of choose to handle things. When I dropped the bike, it's not like I got hurt. The actual bike itself dropped, okay? And I was stuck trying to lift it up, and cars were going past me. Now, luckily, I was one street away from my my house, right? So it was such nonsense to have such a perfect ride, just and then to get cucked at a stop sign by the bike just locking the brakes. Because what I think might have happened is, usually the steering, the wheels are supposed to be aligned when you stop, but the thing is, I know my wheels are aligned. I'm a beginner, maybe I'm an idiot, but it's not like I had the wheels turned, I eased into the brakes and then they just tipped over, so I really just don't know what happened right there. Nevertheless, it fell, and I was struggling to pick it up. Now, I probably would have just looked up a video, because I was picking it up the wrong way the entire time. I was supposed to be using my back, but the person who got out of the car, okay, to help me, I need you guys to understand this. He was what you guys want to call the sub 5, okay? He had a hobble. He looked a certain way, He didn't have, a really messed up face. He looks pretty normal in the face, but, the hobble and the way that he, moved, any, double X chromosome that looked at that man would have said, oh, what a disgusting filth, get away from me. And despite every excuse that he has physically, a disability, for God's sakes, to not help, he is the one who helps. Not the Giga Chad, not the supposed, kings and queens of our world in terms of, the looks and all that crap. It's the person who doesn't have the reason to help. And I see this over and over, because the people who you usually hear the most sympathy from, in these videos, guys, are black pillars. It's the ones that look terrible. And they still feel hey, we should still try and do good. We should still try and protect. Now, I tell you guys straight up, I don't feel you should risk your life to protect, anyone. These double X chromosomes, stuff you want to protect someone, protect your friends, protect your family. But don't go around here, just protecting anyone. This is your life, prioritize your life. But I also understand why they think like that. And it's because no matter what, guys, I'll tell you something straight. I genuinely, just like I mentioned in a previous video, I feel like we're just not in the right world. I really do. Something is wrong on such a fundamental level that beings like you and me, who are just very, very, open thinkers, and we hate everything about this world, and we're stuck here. We're stuck in a world where people are so freaking superficial, okay? I understand being superficial about things where somebody could have a disease or something like that, but if it's something just appearance, where they're not, the most handsome or beautiful person in the world, to be judged so harshly it's so wrong. It's so wrong, the fact that there are just people with just good hearts, and they're not the ones in charge of the world. It's the cocksucker who has manipulated everyone to screw them over for thousands of years, while their families just continue on at the top. That's the world that we live in. And I'm telling you, the fact that it was him, it really touched me. No pun intended, you sick bastard. But it touched me, because we're always right in what we say, guys. It's always the people who you would think have every reason not to that do it. It's never the ones that, are just over here talking on the internet virtue signaling and all this bullcrap, you know, in perfect physical health. You know, maybe you're not, you know, like a 10 on the look scale. I'm just talking about like physicality wise. You know, you have every ability to help, and here you are virtue signaling. No, it's the person who basically doesn't, you know, he shouldn't be helping, you know. You know, you look at some of these instances where like somebody like, you know, is fighting off a shopper and it's like an old guy or something like that. It's always the people who shouldn't intervene, you know, because like they're at a severe disadvantage, and they do it anyway. And it's such a shame that the world that we live in is the world that we live in, because like I say, guys, you guys have hearts of gold, and I'm sorry that a lot of us feel like we have to essentially like contract it, you know. Sorry if you hear all these trucks. I think another freaking ramp might be closed. They've been closing them consistently, so I don't know what's going on. Probably working on it. But it's such a shame that we have to like contract that heart to just get by day to day, you know? Because listen, guys, like I said this before, and I said this in a previous video, you know, like I'm not going to ever help a double X chromosome. I'm not. But don't think for a moment that I'm happy like when I see them getting obliterated or anything. I'm not. But I'm also not stupid to go along or, you know, they're getting obliterated for no reason whatsoever. No, it's completely avoidable, and they are the ones who enable it by consistently voting in the people that are openly saying that they will do this stuff, you know, so. But it doesn't make me happy, because then I think about the people like little girls or little boys, and then they get attacked, or like the freaking elderly, you know, like. I'm not happy that that happens. I wish that we lived in a world where people would be willing to just hear each other out on a very reasonable level, like I mentioned before in a previous video, but we don't live in that world. So, kind of like, you know, just going into how I deal with this. Tell you this before, I'll tell you this again, guys. I have to see the whole picture. And I tell you guys that you should see the whole picture too. Do not be one of these people that tells you just focus on the positive, be an optimist, it's always better. You know, roommate of mine, you know, she really has the wrong idea about me. She really thinks I'm a very optimistic person. She thinks I'm neurotypical, she told me. And I literally laughed to her, and I said, oh my dear, if only you knew. Just like that. If only you knew. Because I know that there are certain things I can't mention to her. Why? Because she's double X. You think she ever would understand the plight of black pillars? You think she'd ever understand, you know, just the privilege of being a double X, like with the kind of crap you can get away with compared to me? You know, there are certain things I can't mention, not even to talk about a political spectrum. I'm not a political person, but let's be real. We know that if you're a double X, 9 times out of 10, there's only one spectrum that you're on, if you catch my drift. And I think we got a food truck, so this might be loud as crap. One sec. Okay, I think it's close enough. It's still coming in, but it's probably not going to be as loud. But you know, she won't be able to like understand the plight of us, you know. And that's the case for a lot of double X's and even just normies in general. They just can't really fathom thinking on the level that we can, you know. So how do I deal with it? Like I mentioned, you have to navigate it, guys. You can't pretend like this stuff doesn't exist just because you don't like it. Like, people like to say that you are blissfully ignorant. That is a lie. That is an absolute lie. If you are blissfully ignorant, are you actually going to tell me that if you were, if you were a passenger on the Titanic, that you would rather not know that that ship was going to sink and deal with the calamity of that ship sinking because you were afraid of the anxiety? Or would you rather know? Ignorance is very, very, very expensive. Okay, it's very expensive. And it destroys a lot of people. So I do not tell you to just focus on the positive. You should focus on everything and navigate. We live in a very treacherous, stormy world, and so you have to navigate those treacherous, stormy seas the best you can. For me, there is plenty of suffering in this world, guys. Plenty and plenty of suffering. So what I like to do, and I'm sorry, hopefully this isn't too loud in the video, but it is what it is. What I like to do is very simple. I don't know why they're parking that freaking close right now. What I like to do is something very simple. I acknowledge that all the suffering is here, and I do whatever I can to just try and be happy. I focus on the stuff that's going to make me happy. You know, it's period, point blank. Whatever's going to make me happy. I'm just pausing because this crap is loud. I don't know why he packed up that far just to go forward. You know, it's just truck drivers, I guess. But I do whatever I can to be happy. You know, whether that's playing video games, whether that's, you know, calling the occasional escort, you know, just saving money. Like, one of the best things that I have chosen to do in life, guys, is just prioritize, you know, a small workload and a small spending, you know, load. I don't spend very much money, you know. I don't have a very high expense life. And that's one of the best things you can do, is just make sure that your expenses are not high. Make sure that your earnings are easily out-earning the expenses that you do have, and go from there, bro. I don't care if people tell me that I'm not, you know, living properly because I'm living in a room or something like that. Like, I don't care if they tell me I'm not living right or I'm an idiot for getting a motorcycle. I'm just focused on whatever's going to make me happy and keep my expenses down. That's all that I'm doing. You know? Take the happiness where you can, guys. There's plenty of suffering to go around, so just focus on doing the stuff that you really want and whatever. Because I'll tell you straight, guys, if I died on that motorcycle, you know what? Good. Sounds crazy, but good. Why? Because I don't have to deal with this anymore. I don't think there's any black pillar out here that is genuinely happy, you know, every day that they have to, like, know that they're in this, like, semi-hell, if you will, you know? It's ridiculous. Don't get it twisted, guys. I focus on things that I do like and stuff, but I don't think any of us would rather be here if we could. It's not about, like, wanting to be, you know, Minecraft idol, if you catch my drift, you know, Minecraft idol. But it's more along the lines of just, out of all the worlds that you had to be on, why here, you know? Why did you have to be amongst a species that hates itself with a passion? Why did you have to be amongst a superficial group of beings that are just dead set on just annihilating each other? Why is it that we stagnate the people who are truly brilliant, who would truly do so much and offer so much to the world, for those who are just selfish, narcissistic cocksuckers that, you know, maybe can lip sync a song and they look relatively attractive, and so, hey, this is the more important person, you know? Like, none of us actually likes that. I don't care that I have money now. I don't care that, you know, I have clothes and food on my back now. That's awesome. But it doesn't change the fact that the world sucks. You know, like, that's something that people will never understand. Like, they think that just because you start to get money that you're all of a sudden happy. Money means nothing to me. I know that it's a superficial freaking currency that means nothing in the grand scheme, you know? In fact, I'm kind of disgusted just how pathetic people are like, when it comes to money. Just the disgusting filth that they're willing to do for this paper crap. It's disgusting. But we need it. I acknowledge it. Like I said, it's one of the ugly things that I acknowledge, but that we need. But it doesn't mean I'll ever like it. Not by a long shot. So, I just focus on what keeps me going, guys. And just knowing that I don't ever have to go back to the freaking hood, you know, like Crack Shack hood and stuff like that, that's a blessing. Knowing I don't ever have to be surrounded by Keishas and the ratchets, it's nice. And I'm, for the first time, going to be able to just go to and fro, whenever and wherever, you know? And I'm going to practice, and I don't know, I would love to take you guys with me. I really would. I'll think about it. I'll think about maybe setting up a camera, putting myself on that bike and just going. It's probably a bad idea because people are pretty clever, but still. I don't know. I think it'll be, like, liberating, you know? But I'm going to end this video. Not going to keep talking. I do need to hurry up and get home. I'm waiting on my freaking ride to get here. I'm going to the DMV to get this thing registered and all that good stuff, title transfer, all that stuff. So, hoping it's not going to hurt too bad, but it is what it is. Thank you guys for watching. God bless. There's life beyond your pain. I'll see you in the next one.